Welcome. I'm your host, Dustin, and we're here for another installment of our Within the Barrens segment. And today we have a podcast friend in the community who has been on our show, and I've also been on his show. We got Boomer from Podcast in the Woods. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing very, very well. How about you, my friend?
Just hot. I know we were just talking about that, but it's so fucking hot. It's awful. It's like everywhere too. Like the whole world is just on a big, I don't know, melting campaign, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. Every time that I go to work, my parking lot is a little bit away from my office building. So I end up having to walk like almost a half a mile. So, you try to dress nice and all this stuff, and then by the time you get to the office, you're just sweating.
Yeah,
It's
that's awful.
terrible.
Yeah, that sucks. If you have to like dress nice in like a suit or something, I feel so bad for you. So bad. Um, with my job, I get to wear kind of like loose clothing, which is good. I work in a kitchen, but I'm a manager, and it's not too bad. So I'm like all around like the place, so I'm not stuck in like one area for too long. So my clothing is pretty loose, but yeah, it's brutal, absolutely brutal. Uh, but it's really cool to have you on here. Another reached out to you a couple weeks ago. I know we've been having problems with scheduling, which happens all the time with everybody. It's not really your fault or my fault. It's just the world likes to work in mysterious ways. It's like with other guests too. Like we'll have a day and it's like, we're gonna move that or something. So I'm just like, oh, okay, let's do it. So it's awesome to finally have you on here for a little bit of a different type of show, not to come and talk about horror movies necessarily, but to more talk about you and your career and everything. So it's awesome to have you on here, man.
Yeah, it's good to be here, man. And I can't believe it. Like, I know you had Candy and Sean on from the House That Screams for kind of like the first iteration of what you're doing here. And man, I don't know how I ended up as the second one. It's a complete honor. I mean, our little crap show that as I so lovingly always put that. It's I can't believe it, but yeah, I'm so thankful to be here. So happy. This is awesome.
I mean, it's my pleasure. You're an awesome dude, and now that you got Gabby on your show as well, who has also been on my show when she was doing stuff with Horror Gamer. So that was really really cool. To see that you guys kind of teamed up because I've always liked her opinions and things that she does when you guys are talking about movies. So it's really cool to have another voice because you started out lone wolf doing it all by yourself, and man, you've been doing it for what, like 3 or 4 months, right? It's been not that long of a time.
Yeah, yeah, not brand new podcast trying to break into the game, and I mean, you know how that is.
Yeah.
It's difficult starting out, and yeah, we've been doing this for about 3.5 months
Wow.
now, and like you said, yeah, I started off just on my own, talking about movies, just talking about things that I love, and then trying to get guests on, trying to get people to interact. So it was I was running the gamut there for a little bit. We were having people on just like every single week, just so I could have somebody to bounce things off of.
Yeah.
And then fortunately, yeah, it was fortuitous that Gabby and I ended up meeting. I had her on a show that when we talked about Event Horizon, and you know how I like to subject people to terrible movies, so I made
Oh
her
yeah.
watch Phantoms. And we just kind of hit it off, and they were going through kind of a transition, and so it just worked out. So she kind of needed a show, and I needed a co-host, and so yeah, she brings all the talent. I just kind of bring the controversial opinions. That's kind of what I'm good for.
Yeah.
And it's worked out really really well. Yeah, she's been amazing.
Yeah. And the dynamic between both of you is amazing. And I'm happy to see your show growing so fast. And that's another thing that I always have to thank our podcast group for, is we're all a family over there. And that's why I wanted to bring you on. I'm eventually going to get all of them on. I really wanted to bring you on just because you're so fresh, and I'm hoping that with how crazy my show has been for the past like 4 or 5 months since we started doing interviews. It's just been so wild. So I'm trying to share that with everybody, and get everybody out there, and get other guests and other podcasts and stuff to listen to you, and everybody else. So that's kind of like I don't know. My point of doing this really, when it comes to other podcasters, I really want to give you guys an extra, voice and a bigger platform. Hopefully, that you can start getting some more pull. Because I love your show. I listen to it every week, and it's so fun. And doing like the two movies, and always like not the greatest movies, but we all gotta talk about them. That's the point that we're doing this. That's the reason why we're doing it, so we can give everything a voice and other people to listen to it. So yeah, thank you for doing the movies nobody else wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and that was kind of the point. And I know eventually we've talked about a couple of heavy hitters, and we plan on doing some more down the road. But something I just absolutely adore, and something that just brings me so much joy, especially like in my own life, is maybe having a friend or somebody that you are acquainted with and they like horror but are just now getting into it, or
Yeah.
something like that. Or maybe it's like they're a vet, and and just bringing new things to the table for each other to watch. And so that's kind of the way that when I first started, I kind of envisioned is bringing some of these things to the table. Some of them may be hidden gems, and some of them may be just hidden piles of crap that you should stay away from. But bringing light to things that
Yeah.
that not a lot of other people talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I love your show, and like all the other shows that we have in our podcast group, and even everybody else outside of that. I mean, Ian really did bring a lot of really talented people together with this group. And with you being like the newly added one, really, other than Dawn, it's been growing so much, and everybody's just been getting hit after hit after hit, and it's really really cool to see that. And I have to thank everybody like you and everybody else for like allowing my show to really get all the guests that I've been getting lately. And I'm actually going through a transition right now, that I think you probably saw that post earlier, that I'm going to announce right here, since this will be the first show of me really announcing it. Is my OG co-host Aaron is taking a little bit of a step back from the show to go and pursue his own his passion for cooking and food, because he's got a really good kitchen job, and he's like super happy about it. And his love for like making dishes and creating food for people has like just been reignited. Um, so it's really cool to see him go on and do something that he loves. Because this show, way back when, I brought him on because I wanted, just like you wanted somebody else to kind of come on and have another voice and bounce off of. And he loved horror, but he was getting into it. I was kind of like there to educate him in a way. And with him, like the show has just grown so much. So like he's always going to be a huge part of the show, whether he's on or not. And who's coming on to kind of fill up that little gap there is my friend Dean of the Dead over in the UK. And man, this is gonna get wild. That's
Yeah,
all I
that.
gotta say.
Yeah, and just as a side note, Gabby messaged me before this started, and she was like, "Oh, please send my love to Aaron when you come on the show." And yeah, we I wanted to say that, hey, Aaron, if you're listening, I'm sure you are. We absolutely love you. And I know I only got to interact with you the one time. You didn't get to come on the show when we talked about you and I talked about the strings.
Yep.
Just didn't work out. But man, you are an amazing dude, and I know that you guys have even talked about how much that you grew throughout the show. And we just want to say that we are so proud of you. We are behind you. We're lighting candles for you, my friend, and just wish you all the best. And yeah, you will be sorely uh, missed. And I absolutely, and if you ever get that inkling, you definitely have a spot on our show. So just message us, if you want to do a guest spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, we love you, my friend, and wish you all the best. Hope you are doing well.
Yeah, he'll definitely appreciate that, and thank you for saying that. I mean, he'll definitely be on here like time to time, like when he's not doing stuff. Like if there's something, I send him everything. So I'm like, there's ever anything on here that you want to do, just let me know. So it's kind of just a come and go type thing. So he'll still be here. It won't be as frequent, and that's kind of why our movie reviews have been kind of halted a little bit. Is because of that little transition. Because I've been manning all the interviews, because they're on the days that he's busy at work. So I've just been trying to fill that gap. And starting next week, Dean will be on pretty much all of the episodes, and it's gonna get wild because Dean is a crazy guy.
Yeah, we're excited. We're definitely excited for that. And yeah, and as another side note, congratulations to you, my friend. I mean, yeah, you've really packed on the heavy hitters, and we've been enjoying all the interviews that you've been doing, and it's just not only is it a lot of fun and informative. Like I think you were the one that brought Revealer to my attention,
Oh
and
yeah.
you were really working hard for that one, and I saw that one on Shutter a few weeks back, and yeah, it's really good. So yeah, congratulations on all your success. This is just amazing how much the Barrens is taking off.
Thank you. And yeah, Revealer, for anybody who hasn't watched it or have heard about it, there was a week straight I was just talking about it because I wanted people to know just how great a movie it is. It's my favorite movie of the year. With all the movies that have came out so far, I don't think anything's going to top it just because of how different it is and the topics that are at hand in that, and for how small it is for just pretty much two lead roles. It's such a great film, and everybody on that cast is so sweet. And if you ever have a chance to talk to them, do it. They're always wanting to come on. So I definitely highly recommend that after the show you send a message to either Luke, Kato, Tim, Michael, or even just the Revealer page on Twitter or on Instagram. They're all amazing people, and that goes for anybody out there who's looking for guests because they're amazing.
Yeah, we'd love that. And I did. I love that movie so much. I thought it was so good. And the one thing though is like I'm like I wonder if it's going to stick the ending. And then the ending happened. Of course, I'm not going to give anything away, but it was just right in my alley. And I'm like, oh, I love this ending so much. So yeah, I love it. 10 out of 10. Now, I know you said it's your favorite movie. It's going to be pretty hard for something to top X for me.
Yeah.
That is my number one for the year because Ty West, I really stand for Ty West, and God, I love that movie so much. So it's going to be hard to top that one, but Revealer is phenomenal. And yeah, guys, you gotta check that one out.
Yeah, I mean, I love X too, but as soon as I saw Revealer and I saw like how much passion was behind it, I was like, no, this is it. This is it. But let's get back to you, since this is all about you. I really want to know, like, where did it all start? Whether it be with the podcasting or with horror in general, whatever one you want to talk about. I like to kind of take a deep dive and see, like, where your passion for all this kind of started.
Okay, yeah, this is kind of a long road to getting to this point. So I started out as Shimp is back, which I still have that Twitter account on, that I use quite frequently.
Yep.
But I started there because there was not a whole lot of people in my life that liked horror, and I was trying to find people like me. And if anybody out there doesn't know, and I've talked about it a few times or kind of hinted at it a few times, that there are certain mental health issues that I struggle with, and so it got to the point where I was just feeling completely isolated, and I needed some type of connection that I was not getting in my everyday life. And so I got on Twitter and I found people that were like me, and that shared the same passions. And I would do all the things on Twitter, like the movie watch-alongs. There's something that I'm not going to take credit for it, okay? But it was me and another guy. We were so passionate about these things, about doing the watch-alongs and connecting with other people. And you have stuff on Friday night, Saturday night, and I'm sure there's all kinds of groups for every single night of the week, but there just didn't seem to be something on Sunday. And a lot of times on Monday morning, I would go in later, so I wouldn't go in until 10 or 11. So I'd be up all night on Sunday, but just didn't have anybody to talk to or interact with. I'm like, man, we need to start something on Sunday. And that's how Sunday Scares got started on Twitter. And so it grew, kind of like my passion grew from there. And I connected with Ian because, again, like I started going down a really dark path. And as silly as it sounds, the one thing that kind of kept me grounded and kept me connected was podcasts. And so there were a few of them. Desmond's Flicks was one of the early ones that I listened to, and he still has a YouTube show, but he's since stopped doing podcasting. But I started with him, and then I ended up finding House That Screams and Ian's previous show, but now it's Podcast of the Damned, and really connected with them and really found a group that that I really identified with. And so Ian has not only been like kind of a friend but a mentor. And so even back then I started getting that inkling, like I'm really enjoying this interaction, but it's I need somebody to hear me. I just need to feel uh, valued. And so I'm like, I may not be the smartest person or the funniest or whatever, but it's like, I love horror. And I came in with the mindset that, even if, one person listened to what I had to say, then that would be everything to me. And so I started talking to him, and this was right around 2019.
Okay.
So I became a Patreon supporter of him, not just because of that, but I really believe in what they were doing, and they put out a good product, and I wanted to support the show, and I'm always trying to help out when I can. But so he began to kind of mentor me and talk to me about the different things of podcasting, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then right around 2020, when the whole world just fell apart.
Yep.
And it's crazy because that gave a lot of people the avenue, because we couldn't go to work, we couldn't do a lot of things. So a lot of people found time to end up their start content creating and that kind of thing, to find an outlet. But for me, for whatever reason, I went the opposite direction. I hit rock bottom in like 2021, to the point, and I'd never been to counseling or anything like that ever, even though I needed to. But, I grew up in a home where that was kind of looked on as taboo. And so anytime that, and I'll stop here, and just as a side note, to say that if you are struggling with something, then please reach out. It doesn't make you weaker to reach out. In fact, it's so much stronger, and it's so much better to say that I need help. Because like I said, I grew up in a home where it was, to show emotion, any kind of emotion except for anger, was not a good thing, and it was looked on as weak. And so I got to the point where eventually I became suicidal, and I had to make that decision, to where there were basically two options at that point: is I could reach out for help, or I was not going to make it, to put things nicely, I guess. And so all those dreams and all the things that I had been thinking of before, none of it mattered. Basically, all I was trying to do was just put one foot in front of the other and just try to make it to the next day. And so I felt guilty in a way. It was kind of crazy, like when I first started. So because I had promised all these things, and I don't know if you've seen my tweet that I still have pinned to my Boomer profile on there, that says there's something's coming. And I can't remember how far ago that was. I believe that's early 2020.
Yep.
Because that's when I started talking to Ian, and I was like, I'm going to start a podcast in February. I can't remember if it was February or October. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was a long time. It was a long time, and I left that there as a reminder, to myself, that I could get past these things, that I could overcome them. So that's why I've continued to leave that tweet on my profile. But I'd come to that place, and just nothing else mattered except for basically surviving. And so that's why it took me so long to actually get the thing started. And then I began to make my way back. And then I think it was at the end of, because I took a long time off of Twitter. I basically, I would still watch movies and stuff like that, but I had started going to counseling, and I started to get help for those things, and so I began my road to recovery. And then finally in 2022, I came to the place where it was like, okay, the time has arrived. And whether you believe in fate or karma or whatever, whatever your beliefs are. It's like all these roads led me to where it was here, and the timing was just perfect for me. So finally, in 2022, I believe we started the show in early April. And again, like I said, my whole thing was, and it took on a whole new meaning after that. And I know this is a long, winding answer. I told you this is a long answer, and I'm
Hey,
sorry.
that's okay. That's okay.
But it gone from, I just wanted to have a voice, which I still did. I wanted to be heard, but I also my focus became, the thing that may, like, even though that I wasn't interacting with everyone, but I was still listening to podcasts. And it was like when I would listen to Ian's show and stuff like that, it was like I had a friend that I was talking to. And so, like I said, as silly as it sounds, like, podcasts saved my life in a way. And so part of my thing is, yes, I want to have a voice and I want to talk about horror, and all that's fun and all that's great. But if there's one person out there that's like me, I want to be able to be a voice for that person. I want to let them know that things are okay, and that there are people out there that are like them, that are going through the same things. And so it became not only a vehicle to be able to express my passions, but it was also something, a means of helping someone else, maybe someone out there like me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I know. I've been there too. Being as far down as it possibly can be. I actually, started doing therapy myself. It's been about 8 months since I've started, and I'm still doing it because, like, I was there, man. I was really, really low in my life. Like, yeah, I have my fiance and my son, but, like, there's just that one thing, like, in your mind that's, no matter who's around you or, like, what's going on, you always feel that sort of dread. And that's really what I was dealing with, especially right after the pandemic. So it was like late last year is like when I started doing. I was like, what, I need to go do this one thing. I need to look after myself, because there was a lot of things in my past that, like, I was still holding on to, that I'm like, I need to finally get over this. And I'm happy to say that, I have kind of reached that point of fuck the past, where I am right now, especially this podcast, man. And, same thing with you, like, listening to podcasts is, like, really what helped me kind of find who I was, weirdly enough, through horror. I've always been a big fan of horror, and I've said it a million times on the show. Is like, when I was younger, I was scared of everything, man. I didn't, like, break out of my shell until I was about maybe 14 or 15, like early 16s, when I really started to embrace horror and get over my fears and fucking fell in love with it. And that's kind of been my life for a while. I'm almost 30, which is also another thing that's, like, I don't want to say. I'm gonna be 29 this year, and it's nuts to think that. And, like, my son is 4; he's starting school in September. So there's so many, like, things in my life that's so nuts. And this podcast has really changed a lot of things in my life. And I know you could probably say the same thing, with you, like you were just saying, like, it changed so much, like having interactions with people, having friends who you don't really see face to face, but, like, they're across somewhere in the world. In our group that we have, like, everybody is so close knit. We all support everybody. We've all been on everybody's shows at least once. Well, most of us, I think some of them are still getting around. But just seeing the support from people that you barely know, and, and knowing that they listen to your show, and then, like, people on social media who you don't know, they're like, dude, your show is awesome. Thank you for that. And then, like, you get, like, these guests that are coming on your show from, like, movies and stuff. And, like, wow, did I ever think this was going to be a thing when I started the show? Fuck no. This is definitely not something I thought was going to happen. It was just like, hey, let's just talk about a movie. And if someone listens, like you're saying, like, if it's just, like, one person, then, hey, that's awesome, And and I'm happy to hear that you are finally starting to get into a point in your life where you know that there's people that there support you and listen to your show, and that you have people over here that you can fall back on if you're ever feeling in that in that dark place. And that goes to anybody. My DMs are always open. I don't care who you are. Message me. I can point you in the right direction of where to go. Because I mean, we can only say so much, and like we can just be like, hey, go speak to this person or whatever, or seek help here, And I've definitely done a fair share of very heavy episodes here, especially when we did I Spit on Your Grave. That's still our most like I don't know, like hardest hitting one emotionally of the the topics in that movie, and like we linked all the hotlines and everything. We wanted to make sure people were being good to themselves and that they were reaching out if they needed it. And we got a bunch of DMs throughout that week of the episode being out, and for people saying, "Dude, you fucking saved my life. Thank you for doing this." And like even hearing that is just like me who's just sitting here at a computer talking to a mic is able to help somebody from anywhere in the world is nuts. It's so mind blowing, and that's why we do this show, and that's why you do your show, because we're here to be for everybody and just be goofy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes it absolutely makes it all worth it, and yeah, even in our silliness that we could be just joking around about something or shitting on some terrible movie, and you never think sometimes about how much that that actually means to somebody. But yeah, and then you get something like that, and just, oh my goodness, yeah, it just makes it all worth it. And yeah, by the way, I always love it when you hear somebody that's like, oh, I'm almost 30, I'm turning 29 this year, I'm almost 40, motherfucker.
Oh, shut up, you look great.
Yeah, we're getting up there.
Yep. Like when my son, like in my mind, it's like he's gonna be fucking 5 next year. That's what's making me feel older than anything right now. Like I still feel young, but just seeing him grow up and starting school, it's so crazy how fast time flies, man. So nuts.
Yeah, man, my oldest is driving now.
Nope. No, thank you. reverse. Go back in time. Yeah, that's nuts. Oh man, but yeah, once again, it's really really good to hear that you are on the right track of, I guess, saying like recovery, because I'm right there with you, and getting on the right track and getting your mind to work. I'm not gonna say normally, but better, and to find that one thing that really helps you kind of get out of that rut. And knowing that you have all these people to fall back on is always a really good feeling. Another thing I wanted to ask was, where did the name for your podcast come from?
Okay, so it's kind of a number of different things. Podcast in the woods. So I grew up in the country. So my nearest neighbor growing up was about 2 miles away. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, we lived in just this total rural area on like 1,000 acres of land and all that. So it was me and my brother, and that was basically the only people that we had to hang out with, except for when we went to school and all that. So I grew up in the woods, and one of the scariest things ever. It's so funny, like, to just tell this ridiculous story, because like life experiences, right? Life experiences for everybody is different. One of the scariest things of all time to me, when I was younger, we would have to go after the evening meal, you'd have to go. They didn't want. My parents were sticklers for certain things, and every parent has their own like little things. And so ours, like, we could not throw food away in the garbage can. We had to go dump it outside, and you couldn't dump it in the yard because it would bring animals into the yard because we lived in the woods. So we would have to go to the tree line and dump this food. And if you can imagine, there's no street lights, nothing. So you're approaching the woods, the forest, and it's just pitch black, out there. And yeah, I still remember to this day, like, and as I'm talking about it, I'm getting like goosebumps on my arms.
Hell yeah, that's great.
But we would take the plates of food. Me and my brother would switch it out, but both of us reacted the same way. It was like we would take the food out, and we would kind of sneak up to the tree line to try to not draw attention from any monsters or bears or whatever it was that were waiting for us. And then we would just scrape it out as fast as we could and dump it out, and then just take off sprinting back to the house. It was every night was a nightmare. So the woods have always been something that's fascinating and scary to me, and also, and maybe because of that, maybe because of that kind of thing, I love cabin in the woods type movies, and Evil Dead 2 is just always been a huge influence on me. And so, that's where that comes from. Just a little bit of play on Cabin in the Woods. So we are the podcast of the woods.
All right, that's awesome. So that's what I was thinking, but I really wanted to hear your story about it. So that's actually really funny. You need to make a horror short about that. That would be great. I'd watch that. Oh man, it's always funny to hear people's thoughts or like their inspirations behind like their show names and stuff. Mine, I've said it a couple of times, but I think some people still don't understand. Is I'm a huge Stephen King fan. All right, I think we all pretty much are, in the horror verse over here. We all love Stephen King, whether it be his books or a movie, or just his mind in general. And I've always been really attached to it and Pennywise. So I just did a little play on the Barrens hideout that they go at, and where they make their little hut and stuff under there. So that's where my name came from, was pretty much the Barrens hideout. Even though none of my I don't know, my visuals or anything kind of like represent that, and that's kind of the point. So it's a little bit of a play. So people are like, that's weird. And people, I don't know. There's somebody earlier when we were talking about it. Dean made a post, and we were talking about him coming on. And someone was like, "Hey, I was at the Barrens." I was like, "Oh, so there's actually a real Barrens somewhere. I got to go to this place now." So that's a little bit of backstory on where the podcast name came from here.
That's pretty deep. Yeah, a little deep cuts action there. I like that. And I'm not the biggest Stephen King fan, which is going to get me canceled. I've read
No, that's completely fine. I mean, I had you come on and talk about the worst one, Salem's Lot, so I'm sorry I put you to that.
Yeah, Salem's Lot was not great. One of my favorite ones though is Maximum Overdrive, just because how silly it is.
Yes.
I love that movie so much. But yeah, I've read one Stephen King book in my entire life. I've read Cell, which I actually liked. I thought that one was really good and inventive, but I just never transitioned for some reason. I never like picked up anything else. I may have to give him a listen to, but every time that I look at the book, it's just so intimidating. Like I can't do it.
Yeah, that's kind of like what happens with me too. Like, cause I used to read a lot. Not anymore. I don't got time for it. So if he puts out a book, or if there's like an old book I want to read that I haven't got to yet, and I see how big it is, I'm just like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm gonna go listen to somebody either review it, or I'm gonna get like an audio tape of it or something, and that's where I'll go with that.
Well, if you just wait long enough, the film adaptation will come out.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm still waiting on the Salem's Lot remake, so hopefully that it's better than the one I made you watch.
Well, they made it. It was Jacob's wife, and it was fantastic.
Yes, that was a really, really good movie. Oh my god! But on the same topic as horror and movies and whatnot. So, what is your all-time favorite horror movie, if you could pick one?
Oh, that's easy for me. My favorite horror movie has been the same, and I touched on it earlier, and I get to talk about it a lot, although I have never reviewed it yet. I'm waiting for that special occasion to review. I think I may save it for something like just ridiculous, like our 100th episode or something like that, and then we'll break it out. But my favorite horror movie of all time is Evil Dead 2, and I love the entire franchise. But I remember it's so crazy. So when I was, I think, 12 years old, my parents ended up getting divorced. And I had been a horror fan since I've been a horror fan since I was 5-6 years old. My first horror movie was Critters.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so I grew up in in the 80s. And my parents pretty much let me watch whatever I wanted to, so I watched all kinds of horror movies. And in fact, I saw a couple of other crazy ones. I saw Last House on the Left accidentally when I was 11.
Yeah.
And then my mom took me to the theaters to see Seven, which traumatized the hell out of me.
That's a pretty intense movie. People don't think about it, but it is.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I remember, so my parents divorced, and my dad remarried, and we started living at my stepmom's home, and she had this massive VHS collection because her ex-husband would just, anytime something would come on TV or something, he would record it, like any kind of movie
Oh,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. And so I went through there, and then there was this movie with this, and you know how well, you may not know because you're 29, so but we had this VHS copy with this tape label that said Evil Dead 2, and obviously it's a horror movie. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I popped it in, and it was so amazing because I'd never experienced anything like that in my entire life. Like this movie terrified me. It absolutely terrified me, but at the same time, like had me rolling. Like there's scenes like the basement scene with Henrietta, which is just absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
And if it's your first time watching, Ash is creeping through this basement, and you've got all these sounds, like even the sound of the door when it's opening, it's just, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's just so creepy. And then, but I remember when the switch flipped on that movie, and I knew it was going to be my favorite movie of all time. It's Who's Laughing Now? So, there's all this slapstick going on, and I'm chuckling, I'm laughing, I'm having a good time. I'm scared because I don't know what's going to happen next. This movie is just so crazy. And his hand gets possessed, and he ends up fighting his hand and stabs it, and then just in the most maniacal way possible, breaks
Yes.
out this chainsaw. Who's laughing now? And just saws off his hand, and there's just all this blood spray, and it goes on. I think I've counted it for like 6 or 7 seconds. And at first, and this is when the switch flipped on this movie. So the first couple of seconds, my 12-year-old self, I was absolutely horrified, just horrified. Like this, I have never seen, and of course it doesn't show it, but I've never seen in a movie somebody sawing their own hand off, right? And so like just the picture of that, because you know how horror movies are, sometimes it's scarier when you don't see things,
Yeah.
and so, but that's just all running through my hand. And I'm like, I am watching this man saw his hand off, but then it just keeps going, and it's just like, ah! And then at some point, I just began to laugh hysterically. And my 12-year-old self was sold on that. And nothing else has ever come close to that first experience with Evil Dead 2. Nothing has ever touched it, and nothing ever will. There will never, ever be anything like Evil Dead 2 for me. And it's inspired and like just absolutely pushed my love of horror to an absolute 11. Right then, I was sold for life. I was going to be a horror fan for life. So Evil Dead 2 is my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Evil Dead 2 is good, man. It's a really good movie. Great. I remember watching that for the first time when I was younger. I think I actually watched 2 first, and then I watched the original. Because my stepfather, we used to go to Blockbuster or Hollywood Video and rent movies every weekend when I went to my mom's. So Friday night, we'd go pick up like 2 movies, one for that night, one for Saturday. And I remember, I think we mixed the first one. The first night we watched House, not the Japanese one, the one with the finger at the door.
Yeah, 1986. Awesome. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
such a good movie.
We did that one, and then the night after we rented Evil Dead 2. Because I don't think they had the first one. I think we were looking for the first one, but it was all rented out for that weekend. So we got that, and yeah, I had the same experience. Like, I don't know what the hell to expect in this movie. It's so bonkers. And then when I went to go watch the original, I was like, wait a second, didn't I already watch this? Because you realize that the second one was like a remake, but it's also a sequel. Then it's not. It's like its own thing. Everything is in that. And then obviously you get to Army of Darkness, which is completely different. It's more of like an action adventure movie, but they're all great. And
Yeah.
I'm definitely waiting for Evil Dead Rise. I hope. I'm hoping it's good. I'm hoping.
I'm sure it will be. Like, I was really, really trepidatious when it came to 2013. Was it 2012 or 2013?
13, I believe, the remake. Yeah.
Yeah, 2013. You're right. So I was so trepidatious because you're right. Like, to me, Evil Dead is the perfect franchise. And in fact, I put a poll up on it one time, like, what is your favorite Evil Dead movie? Because it says a lot about you, on, which one's your favorite. So, because, the first one is just straight horror. It's just a straight low budget horror film. And then Evil Dead 2 is a horror comedy. And it's one of the most perfect examples of a horror comedy of all time. It just, like I said, I was just absolutely terrified. And at the same time, sometimes laughing hysterically. So it balances it better than anything that I've ever seen. And I mean, there's a lot of things that come real close, or that are 99% or something like that. But to me, that one is just the epitome of a perfect horror comedy. And then you're right, the third one is action adventure, or what I call comedy horror,
Yeah.
because it's a lot more focused on the the comedy aspect. But I love each and every one of them just for the different aspects of that. And so, like, going into 2013, I was like so nervous. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be good, and I had a ball. I had an absolute ball with the remake, to where now it is my second favorite of the franchise. I adore that movie. And so they have banked enough goodwill for me to where I'm my expectations, I'm not going to go in there super ridiculous high expectations and expect some kind of masterpiece. But Sam Raimi's on board, Bruce Campbell's on board, both producing. And so I am going to ride with them until something just, for whatever, because even the show is
Oh yeah.
spectacular. The show is absolutely
So good.
spectacular. So everything that they've done in this franchise has been good. And so, I mean, hey, they signed off on it. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on that one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't have super high hopes. Like I'm going to see it regardless. I don't care. Um, but I do want to be blown away in some sort of aspect of it, whether it be like visuals or lighting or acting or whatever it is, storytelling. Um, I don't know. I want something because most horror movies nowadays, I've been feeling like we are in like a renaissance right now. Like
Oh
horror
yeah.
is thriving, right? There's so much out there, and with there being so much out there, there's not really much that really impacts me that much. From like what I saw when I was a kid, like watching all the classics and whatnot, like you have a feeling about those movies, and really the only one that has really struck me hard was Revealer. Um, with everything else that came out, like X was really good just because of all the twists and turns and like all the things that are really hidden in that film. You have to watch it multiple times to really see everything. So that was another one that came out that really blew me away. But like X and Revealer are really the only ones that have really shown me like, okay, horror is evolving right now in a way that things are gonna get really crazy storytelling wise, and it's really when you think of it, horror has always been a reflection of what's been going on politically in society and just the world in general. And I think we're about to hit a very, very intense era in horror. And you can kind of see that with Crimes of the Future, with just how nuts that is. So we're definitely going in a direction right now that everybody needs to start holding on to their seats because holy fuck. you know?
Yeah. Oh man, I thought there was, for the last few years, have just been amazing things. I mean, The Witch, blew me away. There's things that have hit me on a just a really visceral level. Midsommar I thought was great. A lot of one that not a lot of people talk about, but was popular for kind of a little while, was
Oh
The Beach House, yeah,
yes.
on Shutter.
Oh my god, I'm glad that you watched that because I've asked other people about that. They're like, "What movie?" I was
Yeah,
like, "What? Come
yeah.
on." That's a great film.
Which I thought was just amazing. Come to Daddy, Elijah Wood's, his newest horror film, I thought was almost a masterpiece. It was incredible, just incredible acting in that movie. It was visceral. It was just, I mean, my hands were clenched like that entire movie. And it's one of those movies I love. That's because it's one of those things that you don't know. You can feel that something's off, but you don't know why. Until everything is revealed in it. And yeah, it's just so there's just this underlying tension, and and something that's just so off-putting, but you can't put your finger on it until you get the reveal of what's actually happening in that movie. And so that one's another one. One of them, and this one's slightly older, but the one of them that like kind of reawakened, because for a long time I didn't think that I could be scared by a movie again. But my co-host Gabby's favorite film, love you, Gabby, is Hell House LLC.
Yeah, that's a good.
That movie changed my perspective and let me know that there will always be something. That it may not happen all the time, but there will always be something out there that's going to affect you. I saw The Devil. There's so much. There's so much out there that's so good. That has just impacted me in so many ways.
Yeah, there is a lot of good stuff, and it's a good thing that there's a lot, and there's a lot more indie coming out, which I am so for.
Oh yeah,
I'm happy that indie's finally getting the recognition that it's always deserved, and it's really because of the pandemic has halted so much, so they had this time to really polish what they were doing and also pump out as much as possible, because streaming services, especially Shudder, has been picking up so much stuff lately that's really more of an indie. I mean, I can't really think of a lot of horror movies on Shudder that are like big budget ones.
right.
I mean, there will be indie ones that come along that do have like a relatively big budget, but it's still indie, and I'm really happy that that's starting to be shown, and more people are talking about indie films, and a lot of movies that are going to theaters that are like big budget ones are kind of like dying almost immediately, because indie right now is dominating the space everywhere, and it's good. And it's also, I have some theaters around me that are more like art house theaters and whatnot, and they're showing more of the indie ones, and they're packing houses. And then I'll see like, hey, like this movie Crimes of the Future came out. I haven't really packed out. I'll go look to see at like the seating charts of my local theaters, and there'll be like 10 rows still needing to be filled. But if I were to go look at one of those art house ones, it would be completely packed. And I think that's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Black Phone is, I think, is one of the exceptions, which was it's phenomenal. But you're right, yeah. There's so much focus now because it's the indie film industry just allows you so much freedom to kind of come up with your ideas and to do what it is and to realize the vision that you have. In fact, the Stylist was just released on Shudder, and I have to give a shout out to that film and Jill Gavargazian, who is just absolutely amazing. I love that film so much, and that's another one to where I sat there in awe.
Same. Visually, the movie is so beautiful.
Well, not only that, but it was like the character of Claire in that just really had a huge impact on me, and so I don't identify with the killer, and never do that. I know a lot of people. The one that people point to a lot is American Psycho, because Patrick Bateman, he's so charismatic and stuff like that. And it's a funny film. I don't get me wrong, I absolutely love American Psycho, but I don't identify with Patrick Bateman, but there's something in the brokenness of Claire that I'm sitting there watching it, and it's like I just want her to be okay. And it's such a powerful film, and that's another one. There's like I said, there's so much out there that I'm getting excited. I know we're supposed to be talking about the podcast, but it's like,
no, it's fine. I love
start getting sidetracked.
These tangents we do. And if you're looking for more things that Jill's working on, Black Mold is coming up, which also stars Kato AC, who was Angie in Revealer, who is also I think she's second lead in that movie, and that's finishing up production right now, and Jill's producing that, and I cannot wait. And that's another thing too that I realize is like how close knit these like indie publishers are, and like different groups, is that when I talked to Jill and then I talked to Revealer, and then I realized that some of the team that was on Stylist worked on Revealer, and now there's two teams, both Revealer and Stylist are both working on Black Mold, and then Black Mold, some of the people over there were working on Scare Package, and now they're working on Scare Package 2. So it's like what is going on here? You
Well,
know,
none of that, but what's his name? The producer, Kuntz.
Aaron Kuntz.
Aaron Kuntz. Yeah, has he's a major producer on, I don't know if you know him, but Chris Stuckman's first his directorial debut. So Chris Stuckman is a huge, millions of followers YouTuber who has been, doing reviews on just movies, in general, not necessarily horror, but he has a passion for horror. And he's been working with him, and I think they just wrapped up shooting for his first film. I think it's called Shelby Oaks, and I'm
Yes,
kind of excited to see that one.
me too.
I'm there's so much stuff out there.
Yeah, it's nuts, and it's a great time to be a horror fan, and that's why I love this podcast, and I love listening to your podcast and other podcasts because there's so much to talk about. Like I've been trying to go back to the older stuff, but it's so hard to go back to the classics that I was watching because there's so much coming out now. If you look at Shudder, there's like 5 new movies a week,
Yeah,
so or even like daily. It's like what the fuck? I can't keep up, and it's a good thing. Eventually, maybe if I can live to 1,000, I can watch everything.
yeah. Oh, it's so good. But I love how Shutter, like, they kind of mix it in. They have new things, and then they release, because they release a lot of Giallo,
Oh
especially
yeah,
here lately, and which I'm just now getting into. Like, I'm kind of a Giallo novice, but I really appreciate the genre. But then, they released a couple of creature features, Grizzly and Day of the Animals, which was so ridiculous. I
yeah.
just watched that the other day, and it was amazing. And then I was so happy. I was so happy because I clicked on Shutter the other day, and I see that they have released Mosquito, which I've not thought about in years. Do you mind me telling my Mosquito story?
Go right ahead. This is your show.
Okay. So, all right. So again, big horror fan, right? We go to this mom and pop video store in Austin, Texas. My mom took me and was like, and when I was young, like, going to the video store was a big deal. Like, that was your date night. That was your Friday
Yep.
night. I mean, where, like, a lot of kids, you'll take them to the amusement park or something like that. Like, going to the video store for me and my brother was like going to the amusement park. And so we got to pick out a movie. And so we go to the video store, and I'm a big horror fan, and they had 3 copies of course, like Mosquito. And I mean, there's no hype around it. I don't know what the hell it is or anything, but I'd never seen it, and I'd seen tons of other stuff. So I pick it up as the last copy on the shelf, and I'm in Austin, Texas. So this cowboy, it's like, he's got his cowboy hat on and like a gun at his side and stuff like that, comes over, and he's like, he looks up there, and there's no more copies of Mosquito. And I'm sitting there, and I can't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young, just clutching this copy of Mosquito to my chest. And he offered me $20 if I would let him take it. And I was like, no, sir, I can't. I would not be bought off. I was bringing my copy of Mosquito home, and I'm so glad I did. It was completely worth it. That movie is so much fun, and it's so stupid, but it's so great.
Yeah, I think I watched that one last night. I am gonna rewatch it though because I was kind of falling asleep because it was a long day at work. So I definitely need to give that one another rewatch. There's a lot of good shit on Shutter, and for anybody who doesn't have a Shutter subscription, what the fuck you doing?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
seriously, I don't care if you're a horror fan or not. They have stuff on there, even for people who don't like horror. There's everything on there. Um, damn, if we could ever get sponsored by Shutter, imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that everybody in our podcast group gets sponsored by Shutter. That would be the day we knew we made it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if like, especially a lot of my early episodes, because I was trying to find things to talk about, so I would talk about Shutter, like, and kind of ironically, not sponsored by Shutter, wink, wink.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're doing like in our early days of the podcast because now I'm making like the lists for the year and like even like beyond. So that week that we were doing episodes, we would just go on Shutter and be like, we'll pick Wednesday. Be like, okay, what are we doing this week? Just scroll through Shutter and be like, that's the one this week that we're doing. Uh, fun times, fun times. uh, so I think the last question I want to ask you that you kind of answered earlier, but I don't know if you want to expand upon it anymore. But what was a podcast that inspired you to make a podcast? I know you talked about Ian and a couple other ones, but if you wanted to dive a little bit deeper in that, you can.
Okay, yeah, so sure. So yeah, obviously, and all credit all shout outs to the world and, to Ian and, Candy and Sean. Just amazing, because I'm always really, really, really enjoyed the kind of things they do. And they have complete opposite styles. And that's the amazing thing about podcasting, is everybody kind of has, like, and I hate it. I hate it so much when people say, why would you, because people have asked me, like other podcasters have asked me, like, why would you start a horror podcast? There's 50 million horror podcasts. Like, so the fuck what?
Exactly.
Everybody has their own taste, their own way of doing things, their own opinions. And even though like two shows could have very, very similar formats, but the product that you get from that can be completely different, just because, we're all individuals. And so I had, my own thing that I wanted to say, but it was, yeah. So, Ian, big shout out to him, and Candy and Sean, because I would listen to their shows, and like, and I am definitely not the best editor in the world. Like, to this day, I'm gonna figure it out one of these days. But I love it how, Ian is really, really good at that kind of stuff, and Sean as well, to where they edit all these sound bites and trailers and different things into their podcasts. I don't know how to do that, so but I don't care. That's not really, that's not really who I am, or my thing. And no big deal. But as far as quality wise, I'm like, if I could be half as good as they are, if I could, I don't know, somehow to, come to some close to their level, that would just be amazing. And so I would listen to their shows, not just for entertainment, but just kind of as inspiration and as motivation to to continue to get better
Yeah.
at what I did, and and come up with my own ideas. Like, something they would say, or something they would do, would spark an idea in me that's completely different. And in fact, like, in this fall, I've got and I believe you and Ian, Candy, Sean, we've got right now about six. And I think that's about as many as I want. But we've got a massive show, a massive Halloween special that's coming up. That's going to be just so much fun.
Oh yeah.
And so I got that from, and it's the craziest thing, because Ian started this thing where he has started asking questions from the guests on his show, and whoever scores the best, it's kind of like a little competition. And so that just sparked something in me, like competition. And then I went in a completely opposite direction with it. But they've been such huge inspirations. Like I said, Desmond's Flicks was just a massive influence on me. Not only from his content, because it was so good and so funny, but it just kind of showed me that you can kind of work outside the box, that your podcast doesn't have to fit into a certain parameter. There are people that will tell you all kinds of different things, like, oh, your podcast needs to be at least an hour and a half long, or why even do it? And then there's you will have 20 other people that will tell you, if your podcast is over an hour, what are you even doing? Because nobody's listening to it. So Desmond, he's was just all over the map with his stuff. He would have some that would last 2 hours, and he'd have some that would last 20 minutes. But it was just what he wanted to talk about, and it was so good. And so he kind of put it into my mind that you're not shooting for a time. It doesn't matter. You just say what you want to say. You have a good time. Exactly. And that's your show. Another one, Bo Ransdale, who is just the consummate professional. He runs a different podcasting network, but I listened to his show, and he is just super polished, and again, it just motivates me to continue to try to perfect my craft. So I grew up, listening to him. And also a real funny story. Okay, so here we go.
Here we go.
I kind of share with you, I believe my original YouTube channel that I started, right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Okay. So, just to bring that up, for the listeners who have not heard this. So, my original inspiration was YouTube, because I listened to Spooky Astronauts, Dice Rolling, was another big one for me. I love Dice. She is just incredible. And so coming up, that was massive when I was younger. And podcasting really didn't catch on until just like a few years after that. I mean, you had podcasts, but it wasn't to the magnitude that it is today.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, YouTube is kind of where I'm going to take my craft. And so again, I'm a terrible editor. I have no idea how to do anything. um, so I started out a show called Terrible Reviews. One, because I reviewed movies that were terrible, that were just bad, and I like to make fun of them and that kind of thing. But also because the show was terrible. Because you'll have all these YouTubers and they put so much effort into it and so much work, and bravo to them, where they'll be making jokes and they're splicing in clips of the movies or the shows or whatever it is that they're talking about, over the top of that, or however it is that they do it. They have their own formats, but you get these clips and stuff like that, and they're making jokes, and it's just it flows so wonderfully, and it's so entertaining. I couldn't do that. I had no idea how to get a clip of the movie into my video. And so what I could do is I could take I could take stick figure drawings, and so what I did was I would, instead of having clips of the movies, I would draw like stick figure drawings of like the clips and do it kind of like a flip book. And so as I was talking and making jokes about my about the movie, there would be this stick figure drawing of like Ash with like this the chainsaw hand and stuff like that. It was the stupidest thing ever, but that's how I ended up getting my start, because I just loved YouTube and I tried to do it, but it was just it was awful. But looking back on it, nobody else does that.
Yeah.
And I hate that I don't have those videos anymore, because you know how everything in content creation, it takes you a while to build up your following. And I ended up having, I think I did 6 or 7 videos, but I already had, I believe I was like I was in the high 400s in subscribers, and I didn't know
Oh
that
wow.
that was actually pretty good, at the time. A lot of times it takes people, months and months and months to get that many. But I was getting frustrated because, it's like I had 400 subscribers, and I maybe had, 70 people that would watch each video, 70 or 80. But that's really, really good for that
Yeah.
short amount of time. But I was just like, I kind of gave up on it. And then the computer that I had saved all those videos ended up, like, the hard drive crashed, and I lost all of them.
Fucking
So
computers, man.
I know. So because I wish, because eventually what I'd like to do on, Podcast in the Woods is we're going to start probably next year, we're going to start our own YouTube channel, and, not just releasing our videos of the podcast that we do, but we're going to do our own original content as well
Awesome.
on YouTube. Probably 5, 6, 7 minute videos, just all kinds of different things, whether it's reactions, or well, like trailer reactions, but also kind of like reactions to new movies, because we kind of do that on the show now, where we, every now and then when a new movie comes out, we'll do a very short non-spoiler review on it. But we'd like to take that to YouTube, and and make that the avenue where we're doing that, and just kind of have Podcast in the Woods just be our normal podcast.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, but I'm really, really thinking hard about bringing those.
You need to bring the stick figures.
That
Need to
type of
come
thing.
back, man. You got to do it. You got
The
to do
stick
it.
figure review segment.
Yeah, you
But
need
yeah,
to.
so I've been inspired by just a number of different people from all kinds of different platforms, and so that's why I love it. Like you talked about, our network is so amazing. Not because we're mostly podcasters, but we also have Sledgehammer Horror, who
Yeah.
is and with Ken and Ashley, who are just phenomenal YouTubers, and they're just growing like crazy. And I'm sure as this continues to grow, and we continue to see the success that we've seen, that we're going to have more and more people come on board in that avenue. And I appreciate it all. Anybody that puts themselves out there, regardless of what avenue you choose, hey, more power to you. You're amazing.
Yeah. And it always blows my mind when I see people blowing up. Like there's an episode that I was like, oh my god, I got so many people listening to that. I mean, really, at the end of the day, like numbers doesn't really mean anything to us, but when we see that people are listening, it feels really, really good, and that's why I love doing this show because you're gonna have weeks that it's like complete stinkers. No one's gonna want to listen to anything.
Right.
Um, but you'll have that one week where you're just like, wow, this feels really good to be doing what I'm doing, and then people like engage with you on social media. You start talking to, directors, actors, anybody in like a crew or like a comic book artist or whatever it may be. You realize that you have this huge reach from your computer, from
Yeah.
at your home, and like that's what's like really been like blowing my mind. And just to kind of like talk about what's going on with my show right now and things that have happened because of the show and because of yourself and everybody else in our podcast group and our listeners and followers is I had somebody who came on last year to talk about a movie that was in Salem Horror Fest. It was a local film because they do a segment of just like local horror movies. They call it local mass hysteria. And it was a movie called Caucasoid by Nick Verdi, who was a director and writer and actor in it. And he just reached out to us about a month ago and was like, "Hey, dude, I'm doing a movie. I want you and Aaron to be in it." So I was just like, "What the fuck?" So we recorded our spot for it last week. We're all done. It's a movie going to be called Sweet Relief. I can't talk too much about it, but it's going to be filming all next month, and I think he's hoping to drop it in October. So realizing that the podcast is so much more than just you sitting here. It's all the connections, all the friends that you make, and all these little things that you never thought was possible. It makes you feel really good in knowing that you're doing something that somebody likes, and it could be anybody. It could be, a director. It could be a writer. It's so crazy to me, and like I'm still like coping and trying to find a way to cope with all these things that's happening, and I want that success for you and everybody else in our friends group and anybody else outside of that. I want people to thrive outside of just their show. um and another thing that is fucking crazy to me, that I'm gonna talk about probably a little bit more off air with you is for those of you who may or may not know, Frank Farrell, the writer and producer of Spookies, and who's also an actor and producer in Street Trash, is now an extremely, extremely good friend of mine. And that's why I've been telling everybody in the friends group to go reach out to him. You need to get him on his show now. And there's something in the works right now that I'm a part of that I can't speak too much on, and I'm gonna speak to you about it a little bit for what I can because I don't want to say too much on here that doesn't break because I have to sign an NDA, so I'm gonna say that. So I have to sign an NDA, so there's not too much I can speak about. But it's so nutty, and also having a friend in the UK who's blowing up over there with his brand, Dina the Dead, which I have his hot sauce case right here. Hot sauce is actually in the fridge, and realizing that you can make friends anywhere, and just to see the growth that you can have in a year or even a few months with you, you are blowing up. And it may not seem like it to you that you're not like maybe you're like, oh, we're not really doing that well, but I'm telling you that you are. You're doing amazing. People are talking about you. You just sent something to Jill, and she has a fucking video of her unboxing what you sent to her. It's so heartwarming to see that type of stuff, and that's why I want to bring you, and that's why I brought Candy and Sean on here, and I want to bring everybody else on, and anybody else who's doing a podcast or a show or anything. I want everybody to kind of break out of their regular routine to come over here and just talk about themselves. That's really the whole main point of the show, and obviously to talk about my heroes and talk to my heroes and whatnot. Horror universe out there. So anything is possible, and that's what I'm trying to say here. Anything is fucking possible.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, kind of like you said, my favorite episode that we've done is not even our most listened to episode. I mean, we've had a couple of episodes that have just got we had a tremendous amount of feedback on, And some again, because I have so many controversial horror opinions. We've had people come on there and be like, "What are you talking about? How could you not like this movie?" Or "How can you like this movie?" And that's always fun to have those kind of interactions. But when we did Sleepaway Camp, for example, which I know is not I Spit on Your Grave, but it can be a very controversial film, uh, you know, for a lot of people. And we've had feedback on that show to say, because we in the episode said, hey, I love this film, but I get the controversy, and we are allies. We support the LBT Q community, LBD. God damn it,
LGBTQ community.
Q
Yeah,
community. There we
I
go.
got
Can't
you.
even say. I can't get it out. But we are certainly allies. We love you all. We support you all.
Same here.
But we don't come from that background, and so if you know you have you have that kind of perspective, or you want to educate us, we would love to hear that kind of thing. And we've had feedback on that from a couple of people that said, hey, I that's fine. You can like this movie, and that's okay. But why don't we'd like to point this out or that out, and just raised our awareness to the next level. And so I absolutely love that when that happens. So yeah, you're right. It's not just about numbers, but it's the community that we're building. And the fact that you can't, in something as simple as this and something as silly as this, that you can grow and learn and be a better person in the middle of it. It's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's great, and it was awesome having you here. So I want you to, plug where everybody can find you, and let them know if you have anything up and coming that you want them to look out for, or anything you want them to listen to that came out in the past.
Okay, sure. So we have a few, I think we're up to 20 episodes now,
That's
and you can
crazy.
find us on all podcasting platforms. We are Podcast in the Woods. All you have to do, it's funny, like when we first started, because you get, and I don't know about you, I'm sure you were the same way, but when you first were doing your first episode, when you dropped your first episode, you were like searching for yourself in like Apple Podcasts and stuff.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
did that, and I could not find. There was we were nowhere to be found. I'm like, God damn it!
Yep.
No one's gonna listen to this show. But now you type in "Podcast in the Woods," any podcasting platform, we pop right up. We're the
Yep.
first ones now, so we've arrived. No, not really, but Podcast in the Woods, all podcasting platforms. You can find us on Twitter, and we interact like crazy. We are on there every single day because that's what it's all about, is building these connections, and we want to hear from you. We love you guys. We love our listeners. So you can find us on Twitter, Woods Podcast 1, or just go to our link tree. You can find us on Linktree/Woods Podcast, and that has all of our stuff on it. So that's probably the easiest way. And one more time, I just got to shout out to my co-host Gabby. I love you so much, and if it would not been for her, we would, we would not be the show that we are today without Gabby. Gabby is incredible. So she is incredibly talented, and I'm so thankful for her. So, Gabby, if you're listening, and I know you will, I love you and am so thankful for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. She is really good. She's such a sweet person.
Oh yeah.
Oh, man. It was awesome having you on here, and being able to talk to you and get a little bit of a deep dive. Because it's always fascinating hearing people's backgrounds, because obviously when you're doing a show, that's not really what you're trying to do. You're trying to go and record something about something that you love. So being able to express yourself in a different way on a different show, or even on your show if you really wanted to, it's always really cool to hear the backstory. So thank you for coming on and sharing with everybody.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. Like I said, this is insane. This is just insane to me that we're the second podcast that you had come on here. I mean, there's so many people that are so much more worthy than we are. But yeah, I am so thankful, and I love you so much. And yeah, I'm glad that this finally worked out with all the shenanigans that's happened with our schedules. Because I know we've just been back and forth like crazy. But yeah, it's been an honor. This has been a blast. And so yeah, thank you, my friend.
Well, thank you, Boomer, for being here. And I'll probably be putting this out over the weekend, so it'll be coming out very soon. And it was really such a blast talking to you. And I will definitely be talking more. Obviously, we'll probably be going on each other's shows again at some point. And we got the thing that's coming in the fall that you're planning, which I'm really excited for. So it was really, really awesome to sit down and talk to you. And we will see everybody later. So thank you guys for listening. Please go support Boomer and Gabby at Podcast in the Woods anywhere. You guys have your Patreon now too, so go support them there as well. So anything helps, guys. Even if you're just clicking on, listening to a video, if you want to go drop some money, anything helps. Or even going to follow. So thank you guys so much for listening and learning a little bit about Boomer and his background on Podcast in the Woods. This was awesome. See you guys later.